EQ, or emotional intelligence, seems to be all the rage these days. But what does it actually mean? Can EQ be measured like IQ can? Can it be improved upon? If it can, then how? Welcome back to Neuroconversant Leadership, where we talk about effective communication and leadership, especially in the STEM workplace. I'm Jeremy Doran, and I love to help great engineers become great leaders. Today, we're going to talk about EQ, what it actually means, and what it's good for. I've heard people say you have to have a high IQ and a high EQ. It's something people say, but it doesn't really make sense. The two terms are so different and they're used in such different ways, and people don't recognize that. So I want to get into it just a little bit today. IQ is a score from a test. So it gives you an actual number and it measures potential. It's a static number. EQ, it's kind of an amorphous term. It's used in a lot of different ways, but generally people use it to refer to someone's ability to interact well with others. There are a number of tests for it, but they're all different. They measure things differently. And what they generally measure is actually your knowledge and your skills, not your potential. So let's define IQ, or intelligence quotient. It's a number representing a person's reasoning ability. So it's determined by dividing a person's score on a specialized test by his or her age. And then you multiply that by 100. That's part of what makes it static, but it's also what drives the quotient part of the name. Quotient is actually referring to the fact that a number, the score, is derived from dividing one number by another. When you divide one number by another, you get a quotient. That's why IQ is the intelligence quotient. So what it is, it's a measure of someone's ability to learn, and it really defines the ceiling of what a person's able to learn, but it's not a measure of what they actually know or what skills they have. When you look at EQ, it's more a measure of a person's ability to understand their own feelings and the feelings of others. So there's no real quotient, so the Q part doesn't make any sense. And unlike IQ, it's not a measure of their ability to learn. What it is a measure of what knowledge or skills they already have. And that means it can be taught, which is great. So to compare and contrast one more time, IQ, it's a measure of potential. It's static. And a person's IQ and their knowledge and their skills don't necessarily match. Again, the IQ is really just measuring the ceiling level, not where you are. EQ, it's a measure of interpersonal skills. It can be taught and improved because it is a measure of where you are right now. Sure, it may come more naturally to some than it does to others, but that's not what people are generally measuring when they talk about EQ. They're referring to the actual skills and the knowledge that a person has. So what's actually covered by the term EQ? At its root, EQ refers to the ability to perceive, understand, and manage emotions, both in yourself and in others. So if you picture a quadrant with 4 squares, in the top left is self-awareness. So that quadrant looks at being aware of emotions as they happen and your ability to perceive them accurately. So basically your ability to name your emotions and understand why you're having those emotions. Just below that, still on the left side, and the left side is the self, is self-management. So once you have become aware of them, are you able to control them, or are they going to control you? So you can control your response and you can manage your mood when you get good at self-management. If you look on the right side, which is more social and interacting with others, on the upper right side, that's social awareness. And that quadrant is associated with being able to perceive and understand the emotions of other people. So it has a lot to do with paying attention, listening, and having empathy. To be clear, empathy and sympathy are not the same thing. Empathy is understanding someone else's emotions, where sympathy is really kind of feeling the same emotions that they feel. The bottom right corner, that taps into being able to apply the awareness of the emotions experienced by yourself and others in order to successfully manage social interactions. You're putting it all together so that you can engage, you can collaborate, and you can lead people. So that's what it is. What can you do to improve it? The first thing is know yourself. Take an assessment. I've talked about a number of different assessments, from the DISC to the Myers-Briggs to the Achiever. Anything that helps you get a better understanding of yourself and understand how you may be different than others is very useful. Think about your mission and your vision, not just at work, but in life. What are you really, really passionate about? If you understand that, it's going to go a long way to understanding yourself. Practice naming your feelings. And then once you've named it, then ask yourself, why am I feeling that way at this particular time? And lastly, when interactions go wrong, take time to think about what happened. Just do some analysis, whether you're writing in a journal or you're just meditating or thinking about it. Spend some time really analyzing what happened. So that's number one, is knowing yourself and thinking about it. Number two is asking for feedback. If you can ask someone, hey, do you feel like I truly hear you when you're speaking to me? If you get an understanding of that, that's going to go a long way. Even just asking a person that is going to help them feel closer to you, but the feedback you get is going to be invaluable. Ask them, what can I do better when I'm giving instructions? And I said, stop and think about what went wrong in an interaction. Why don't you ask the other person? Not at the time. You got to wait. You have to wait till the dust settles and then say, hey, that interaction did not go the way I wanted it to go. What could I have done to have made it better? And then listen to that feedback neutrally and try to get something from it. And then thirdly, you can consult an expert. If you have a therapist, just ask about this topic with your therapist, or if you don't have one, it's okay to get one. If it's business oriented, then get a coach. There are a lot of business coaches who are going to be able to help you to understand your emotional quotient. And at the very least, read books. There are a ton of materials out there. So go out there, read books, read articles, get as much as you can, and try to start applying it. So while I complain about the fact that I think the term EQ is used incorrectly almost all the time, and I find that annoying, the idea of it is still vitally important. Having a manager who can do complex equations is great, but having one who knows actually how to interact, collaborate, and unite a team is arguably even more important. So take some time and think about where you are in your emotional quotient and what you can do to get better at it. Because in your work life, the skills and knowledge that you have on the intelligence side and the skills and knowledge that you have on the emotional side are going to work together to make you as successful as you can possibly be. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Neuroconvergent Leadership. I really appreciate you being here. If you can do me a favor and just go and give a rating to this, and if you rate it highly and you liked it, share it with someone you know who you think can benefit as well. Thanks so much and have a great week.